Hi, my name is Troy Carruthers with the Darley Company, and behind me here you'll see job 3506, a fire apparatus that was built by the Darley Company for the Gateway Hose Company in Gardiner, Montana. Today the purpose of this video is to give you a brief understanding of the basic operational principles of this vehicle, to show you how to put the fire pump into gear, how to operate the compressed air foam system, and how to safely utilize this pumping system on this 2022 Darley fire apparatus. So sit back. Over the next 10 or 15 minutes I'll give you a brief understanding of how this vehicle operates and show you some of the high points and some of the features of this new Darley fire apparatus. So just to give you some of the basic specifications on this vehicle, this is a two-door Freightliner chassis, an M2, with a, I believe it's a 400 horsepower ISL. And this chassis just recently had a Jacobs brake installed for the top of the line engine braking that's going to be necessary when running around the elevation in the mountains in the Gardiner, Montana neighborhood. We have 3 roll-up door compartments on each side of the vehicle, as well as a top mount wraparound Darley Vision style pump panel. So I'll give you a quick look around the different parts of this vehicle now. So this body has an integral water tank, and the entire body is made out of a copolymer or plastic material. So everything painted red here on the back of this back of this vehicle is actually all plastic. So it should last you a good long time. It's completely corrosion free and it's very, very durable. The roll-up doors here are aluminum slat type material, shown currently in their closed position. And voila, now they're shown in their open position. So the right or passenger side front compartment has 3 adjustable shelves, 2 lower or 2 upper and 1 lower. There's unistrut mounted on the back wall of the compartment over the wheel well. This is known as compartment 5. The front is compartment 4. So there's a, like I said, unistrut mounted over the wheel well for commonly mounting air pack brackets or a tool board, something that you can have some variability with over time. And then the rear compartment, there's a rollout tray on the floor, and then 2 adjustable shelves, one in the lower and one in the upper portion of the compartment, that can be adjusted specifically to the equipment that you intend to store. You'll also notice on this side of the vehicle is a hydraulic over electric or electric over hydraulic style ladder rack. So we have a 24-foot and a 12-foot, as well as some pike poles stored on the ladder rack. And using the switch on the pump panel, this ladder rack can lower down to chest height, which makes loading and unloading your ladders quite a bit easier. Here we are now around the back side of the vehicle. The back of this compartment has 1 roll-up door compartment that's full height, and as well as a slide-in storage compartment, which is uniquely camouflaged into the left side body compartment due to the chevron striping that's over top of the aluminum hinge door. So here's the back of 3506 now, with the rear roll-up door and the second suction hose door opened for visibility into those compartments. You will see in the back of what's known here as compartment 7 a 2.5-inch pipe that goes into the tank itself, fed by a 2.5-inch female swivel fitting on the back called the autofill. This tank fill connection, known as the autofill, allows the operator to pressurize water directly into the water tank using a control on the pump panel. When the control is set to automatic and there's pressurized water supplied to this fitting, the water tank will automatically open when the water depletes down to a half a tank. and then will automatically shut itself back off when it gets to 90% full. Therefore, keeping the water tank always somewhere between half full and 90% full automatically. So again, this is the autofill, and the control is on the pump panel. Here is the control for the Odin autofill. Odin is a division of the Darley company. Simply pushing this switch to the left towards auto will automatically then start to affect the water tank by topping it off anytime it drops below half full. It'll then fill the water tank back up to about 90% and then automatically close the electric valve in the rear compartment. If at some point you want to top off the water tank completely, you can simply open the valve, pushing the switch all the way to the right, and filling from that pressurized fitting at the back of the vehicle until the water tank fills completely. Then you'll have to turn this to the center position to shut off that water flow. Otherwise it'll keep filling the tank and dumping out the overflow pipe back behind the rear axle. And you would see that coming out of your fill tower here at the front of the tank. Now here we are over on the left side, or the driver's side of the vehicle. The same three compartments, same shape and size here on the driver's side, with the doors currently in the closed position. And with the magic of digital videography, now those doors are magically opened. So the left front compartment, known as compartment 1, we have 3 adjustable shelves that can be set to a various height for the different sizes of your equipment. We also have 2 more adjustable shelves here in the rear compartment, known as number 3. And then compartment 2 is set up right now with those SCBA air pack brackets with straps. So depending upon which side of the vehicle you want to put your air packs, you could do all 4 of them on this side. You could also put some on the other side as well. The unistrut's in place for that. And then you'll also notice both ahead of the rear wheels and behind the rear wheels are 2 additional tubular shaped storage compartments for spare SCBA bottles. And there are 2 on this side as well as 2 on the other side. And then down under the rub rails, 1 ahead of and 1 behind the rear axle, you have your folding wheel chocks. Now if you're not familiar with folding wheel chocks, be careful with them until you're comfortable with them. There is a pinch hazard when you flip them open and set them up. You want to make sure you're comfortable and you keep your fingers out from in between some of the moving aluminum components. So again, they're a little bit of a pinch hazard. Set them out on the parking lot and open them carefully and close them carefully until you get comfortable with their operation. I do recommend wearing gloves while you do that the first few times until you're familiar with that operation. And here's just a close-up of that autofill electrically operated tank fill valve here that's in the rear compartment. So again, this electrically controlled valve, the electric motor here shown in the black plastic cover, that electric motor will open and close that 2.5-inch Akron ball valve above it anytime the water tank drops below half full, when you have the autofill valve turned into the on position on the pump panel. And then you have to have a pressurized source feeding this fitting on the back of the body, and it will top the tank off to, again, 90%, and then it'll automatically close this valve. So it's a very handy feature if you have a hydrant or if you have another pressurized water source and you don't want to have to manually be controlling that water flow in and out of your tank to get your water tank topped off. This is a very easy system to hook it up, and it self-maintains a decent water level inside your water tank. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes and familiarize yourself here with the Vision panel from Darley. So this is a top mount wraparound pump panel that's exclusive to the Darley company. You'll notice that every discharge or intake is color coded, and that color coding is laminated right into the surface of the panel itself. So there's no labels to fall off. Nothing to snag on a rag when you're washing or wiping down the pump panel. So starting from the passenger side, which is the right side of the truck, you have your number 3 discharge in orange and a large diameter discharge in brown. Then we have your 3 speedlays, which we actually have a hose bed pre-connect here first in white with a flow meter and an air switch. Then we have our front speedlay in red and our rear speedlay in blue. The speedlays are what we have here just behind me underneath this this nice little recuperation bench. We have our pre-connected short whips of hose, where the whip itself comes just to the end of the speedlay hose storage bed on each side, so that you can have that connection. That first length of hose will connect here right at that fitting, and it'll be right at the edge of the vehicle where you can leave the bed of hose connected above it and disconnect the hose below it and have that discharge available to you even without unloading all of the hose inside of this storage, inside of these storage beds. So again, the front one, the rear speedlay, along with their flow meter with built-in pressure gauge, and the air injection toggle switch to turn those into compressed air foam. These are your 3 CAFS discharges, 2 speedlays, and then a hose bed pre-connect. This turns on your CAFS air compressor when you push and hold the on-off button. This is your governor. This is the throttle that controls the engine speed, which thereby controls the pump pressure. We have our tank to pump. You simply turn this switch to open, and that opens an electric valve, an air over electric valve between the water tank and the fire pump. So you need to have this open anytime you're using the water on board the vehicle. Here's a primer. You can quickly open this primer, pull the primer to evacuate any air from the pump. I recommend doing this every time, just for a few seconds, to get the air out of the pump, the high point of the pump. You can get the air bubbles out, and then this governor works really well. This is a 2-stage EM pump by Darley with CAFS, but the 2-stage pump, should you put it into the pressure mode, will work very efficiently at even low RPMs and develop very high pressure. Whenever you're using CAFS, you have to be in the volume mode. Again, CAFS system only works in the volume mode. Pressure is for when you only want to use water or water with foam, but not CAFS. Okay, so if you're in the pressure mode, we're typically making very high pressure water spray, and you will not be using CAFS. You have to be in the volume mode and making less than 150 psi or less if you want to make compressed air foam. CAFS is high volume but low pressure. Okay, typical operating pressure for CAFS is around 125 psi. Typical pressure for a transfer valve to be in the pressure mode are 200 plus psi. So if you're wanting very high pressure and low flow, then you pull out this transfer valve into the pressure mode, but then your compressed air foam system will not be functional anymore. This only works in the volume mode. Any questions? Call me. The number will be at the end of this video. Again, then we have the Odin autofill, which is lined up right over top of your water level gauge, which is lined up right over top of your tank fill or your recirculate valve. You always want to have this cracked open just slightly anytime you're operating from your tank to pump, so that you're taking that warm water that's being generated by your pump pressure and recirculating it back to the water tank to keep your water cool and to keep your pump from overheating. We also have a deck gun. This is deck gun, water only, very high volume water to this deck gun. By pulling the pin and rotating this upwards, you can shoot from an upward position, which then allows you to actually shoot down very close to the sides of the truck. So this is what's known as the Apollo High Riser. And again, by pulling on the pin on the side, you can actually turn this whole thing up and stand this this arm of this deck gun up into a higher angle of attack. And then over here on the left side of the pump panel, which is actually the left side of the truck, but when you're standing up here, it's the right side of this pump panel, are your number 1 and your number 2 discharges, yellow and cream. and those are down here, 2.5-inch discharges on the side of the pump panel on this driver's side. Okay, so just a quick rundown of what I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to get into the cab, and I'm going to show you how to fire up your vehicle engine, how to release the parking brake. We'll drive ahead shortly and just move a few feet. We'll pretend that we're on the fire scene. We'll set the parking brake, put the transmission in neutral. We'll then shift the fire pump into gear, and then I'm going to leave the tank to pump open. It's a good habit, so that immediately upon putting the master switch into gear, we're going to have water in the fire pump. We're going to prime the fire pump. We're going to make sure that we're getting pressure once our pump is engaged here on the display, and then I'll show you how to increase the pressure of the fire pump, how to crack the tank refill a little bit to recirculate, and then we'll start making some compressed air foam. We'll engage the compressor, we'll engage the foam system and make sure that those are both operable, and then using the hose that we have here off on the passenger side or the right side of the vehicle, we'll fire up the compressed air foam system and spray some compressed air foam out of this SaberJet nozzle. And this SaberJet nozzle is kind of unique in that it's actually 2 nozzles in one. Right now with the bail on the top, it's shown in the wide open position, so we have a large smooth bore valve straight through the center of this pistol grip style nozzle. So this works great for calves. It doesn't pop any of the bubbles that are being generated here through the hose by this fire pump system. If we close the bail on the top and twist the fog nozzle, we can then spray outside of these spinning teeth a very nice fog spray pattern and make some milky water, which works great for absorbing into carpets and sofas and draperies. It pops some of the bubbles and will yield you kind of a wetter, milkier solution for soaking in, which is very good to prevent the fire from burning back. So this nozzle, like I say, is 2 in 1. It's both a smooth bore and a fog nozzle, and I'll show you how that operates here shortly. Alright, now we're driving or getting ready to crawl into the driver's position or the pilot position here. And first and foremost, to utilize this vehicle, you do need to turn on the vehicle master switch, which is a quick clockwise rotation. You'll see the red pilot light come on. Now we have battery power. We then have our ignition switch, so we can go ahead and fire up the chassis engine. I'll let the gauges do their self-test. You'll notice that my Weldon seatbelt monitor will show red until I actually grab my seatbelt here and plug it in. Once I plug it in, that light will then go green. I always like to, I can't believe it's November 1st, 2022, and I am turning on the air conditioning, turning the heat off because it's like 65 degrees out. The sun is just pounding, and it's actually hot. It's actually hot here in November. So Halloween last night was a nice evening. Kids got out trick-or-treating. Didn't have to get all bundled up too bad. It was in the 50s. And like I said, today we're in the 60s. So I just saw the forecast for Gardiner today, and I think you guys are right around 30. So I apologize for bragging about sunshine and heat right now. So again, you do need to, let's see. We have to, no, we don't need to push the button. The air conditioning comes on anytime you're here in the blue. And this is if you want to do an interior recirculate. Makes the fan run a little harder, and it just sucks from inside the cab. So we'll make sure the air conditioning is working well. We got a full tank of fuel, a full tank of DEF, which is diesel exhaust fluid. We're getting prepared to send this truck your way shortly. Got a little over 1,000 miles right now, and the truck should be to you sometime here in early November. So again, vehicle's running. I got the parking brake set. We're sitting in neutral. If I got my foot on the vehicle brake and I push drive, it's going to give me 5 gears to work with. Right now I'm going to start out in first gear. If I release the parking brake, I can drive the vehicle. And look at that, I've gone 3 feet and I'm right where I want to fight the fire now. So let's assume we were just driving the vehicle We've gotten to where the fire is. We're ready to fight the fire. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is hit neutral and set that parking brake. Okay? You can then take your foot off the service brake, and now we're going to focus on this pump shift. So by setting that parking brake and selecting neutral on the transmission, we're now calling this home base. This is where we're fighting the fire from. We've selected a spot. Hopefully it's somewhat level. Hopefully it's somewhat dry. And if we do spill a little bit of water here, it's not going to create a mud hole and we're going to get stuck. So we've hopefully found solid level ground. And like I said, next we're going to shift the fire pump into gear. Never touch this knob unless you're in neutral. If you remember that, if you don't want to be a knob, don't touch this knob unless you're in neutral. If you're in neutral, there's nothing you can do to this fire pump that can hurt it. It's when you start grabbing this knob, if you're in drive, while you're pumping, if you shift this thing out of pump gear, you can hurt the pump. So don't do that. The only time you want to touch this knob is when you see a couple of ends on the display. Because right now that means the drive shaft isn't spinning, means the pump gears aren't spinning, and we can shift the fire pump into gear. So you lift up on the safety catch, pull straight up. Now what we've done is we've just disconnected the rear drive line going from the fire pump to the rear differential, and now we are getting ready to fire up the pump. So now the pump is in the main drive line. I can now reach up here and push D for drive. When I hit D for drive, my OK to pump light will now come on, and I'm pumping. Now we're done in the cab. Now we got to go to the pump panel. So I've got green lights. I've got 4-4, meaning we're in direct drive lockup, and I'm pumping. So now I'm going to get out of the chassis cab and close the door behind me. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make sure my tank to pump is on or open. I'm going to pull the primer just for a couple of seconds until you hear that tone change. And then now our pump pressure's jumped up to 35 psi. So even at idle, 750 RPM at idle, I'm making about 35, 36 psi of pressure. I'm in the volume mode, which means I can turn on my compressor if I want. Before I do that, I'm going to crack my tank refill just slightly to provide some water flow, some water circulation, to recirculate some water from the tank to pump, from the tank to the pump, and from the pump back to the tank. So now I can run like this all day. We've got a little over a half a tank, about 5/8 of a tank of water. So we're ready to fight fire. My foam system, if you notice, there's a red button right here, and the first word is on. There's two red lights. One is under flow, and one is under the word on. If it's on, it means your foam system's ready to go. So as soon as we start flowing water, out to this rear speedway, you'll see that flow meter start to read, and you'll see that flow meter start to read. Okay? So that's telling you that water's flowing out that line. Before I do that, I want to turn on my compressor system. So I'm going to push and hold. Now the green light is on. Now my compressor system will have compressed air available at these 3 discharge points. It's going to immediately jump up to about 60 psi. Once we start bringing up our pump pressure, now we're adjusting our pump pressure. I'm going to run at 100 psi. So now we're at 100 psi of pressure, and then my cap's air pressure will go up to 100 psi. Alright, so now that we're up at 100 psi of pump pressure, we're also going to be making approximately 100 psi of cap's air pressure. So now with the pump making 100 psi and the compressor at 100 psi, the foam system's on. I'm going to charge the rear blue line speedway. We're going to work it into the calf's wet-dry setting here, and then turn on the air switch. So now that line is going to be making compressed air foam. So again, the bail on the top is your smooth bore, and it's going to allow calves to come out of the hole in the center. So now with our pump pressure at 100 psi and our calf's air pressure at approximately 100 psi and our foam system turned on, I'm now going to charge that line. We'll put it into the calf's range and then turn on the calf's air switch. Now this rear speedway will be charged with calf. And the pump pressure and the air compressor pressure will automatically stay in the proper range. Alright, so this is the calf's nozzle, the Saberjet nozzle from Akron. It's got the smooth bore as well as fog spray pattern. So we open the smooth bore by opening the bail on the top. Alright, so the calves is working great. Again, we're only running at about 100 psi. You can run up to about 125 to 140 psi if you want some more reach, some more power. But we're just running it as 100 psi. This was probably about 60 gallons per minute. You can run it down to about 30 gallons a minute, make a really dry, fluffy foam. So all I did was just close down the valve a little bit, and now the foam type is going to be much fluffier. It would even be fluffier yet if we had another length of hose on here. The more hose you put on, the better quality bubbles you're going to get out of the end of the nozzle. When you hear it crackling like that, then you're going to be making what looks like shaving cream. just to give you an idea. So this tree is about 19 steps away, so a little over 50 feet away, and at probably 25 gallons per minute of water and foam solution at 0.3%, the compressed air turns it into this fluffy shaving cream type of a mixture that'll cling and last on there for quite a while. If you're trying to prevent spreading of a wildfire or trying to coat down a house before a wildfire rolls through, this type of foam sticks around and lasts a long time. So just in a couple of minutes here of spraying the calf system, we maybe used, I don't know, at 40-50 gallons a minute. We probably didn't even flow a minute, so there's less than 40 gallons of water that's been flowed out of that 1,000-gallon tank, and we've covered all this area pretty well. I can guarantee this area can't burn for quite some time. You may say this looks like foam, but that's 99.7% water heavily agitated with compressed air to turn it into that shaving cream type of a foam. But my hand is not soapy at all, because again, these bubbles are made with 99.7% water and 0.3% Class A foam. Now to shut the system down, all you need to do is shut off your air, shut off your foam, push the red button, and then the light will go out. Now you can just flow clean water out the end of this nozzle. So now the air is shut off, so your propulsion, your energy will be less, and your foam is shut off. So in a minute, once we get all the compressed air foam, because this whole line back to the truck is still packed full of calves. I could have had the truck completely shut off and it still would have had that much energy. So now we're getting the soapy water out of the line, followed by nice, clean, clear Chippewa Falls spring water. Once this is running clean, without any bubbles in it, we can shut the nozzle down, take the pump, bring it back to neutral, well, after we go to idle. So we'll go back up to the pump panel, we'll reduce the speed down to idle. We can close this, we can hit idle. The compressor will automatically start to bleed down. You do not need to shut the compressor off, although you can. You just can't turn it back on again for at least a minute between shutting it down and restarting it to allow the system to blow down. So if you're going to shut this off, make sure you don't need the compressor for at least a minute. I typically just leave it engaged, and then I go back to my driver's seat, open the cab door here, carefully transition from the running board to the cab step, crawl into the cab, and then again, don't touch that knob until you're in neutral. Once you're in neutral, the OK to pump light will go off. You'll be showing 0 on the speedometer. Then you can shift the pump off, and now we're in road gear. We pushed in on the knob, so now we're in road gear. If I put my foot on the brake and release the parking brake and put it in drive, now it's going to say 5-1. It's going to tell me to buckle my seatbelt. If you notice right now, the seatbelt indicator is showing red. It's telling me to buckle my seatbelt, and then I'm off to the races. Head to the next fire or back to the station. Alright, and when we're back at the station, you just turn the key off. The key is locked in there. Don't try to remove it. It's a permanent part of the ignition switch so that the key never gets taken out of the truck and lost. It's an NFPA requirement. So if you're trying to get that key out, stop trying. It's not coming out. Not without breaking something. Then always remember to shut off your master switch. And then you can plug in your vehicle's power system. You got a battery charger on board and an air line that you can plug into the station to keep your air tanks pumped up. So you got your electric power, your air power, and you do have an outlet inside the cab as well. So if you mount flashlights or handheld radios, you do have, this is called a shore power inlet with household style outlet plugs. Sorry, you can't see that very good with the light, but there's a household style power outlets in here, and it says it's connected to shore power, meaning anytime the station you're plugged in, that'll be hot, so you can charge your portable radios or your thermal imaging camera or what have you. All right. All right, so for the time being, that's going to conclude this little operational seminar that we put on here this afternoon. On behalf of the Darley Company, again, my name is Troy Carruthers. I want to say thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to build you this awesome vehicle. We hope it provides you many years of dependable service. If you should have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'll leave my phone number here on the screen, as well as the Darley toll-free number if you should ever need to reach any of us. Adam Ewings is in the warranty department. I know you have his contact information. Again, I want to thank Bob Gardiner, Bob Copeland, for putting up with us here over the past year and a half. It's been an arduous process. Trying to build anything right now these days over the past couple of years has been a challenge, but it's been a challenge we've taken on head first, and hopefully you're very pleased with the final result. So we'll get started on truck number 2, the 4-door version of this same exact vehicle here shortly. We're expecting the chassis from Freightliner any day, and then we'll try to shoehorn it into production once we know for sure we've got that chassis. So again, on behalf of Darley, thanks again for trusting us with your business, and we hope this vehicle is pleasing to the eye for you, as well as doing all the things you need it to do. So you should have it shortly. Again, today is November 1st. 2022. I would think you should have this thing in Montana here in the next couple of weeks. Take care, and again, thank you very much.